Hello and welcome into the next episode of the PHFL NFL podcast. That was harder for me to say than it should have been. We're doing our Week 8 review. Me, Adam, joined as always by Kai and by Mikey. Hello, gentlemen.
How are we doing?
Oh, how are we?
Not too bad. Looking forward to talking about some NFL games, some of which we've already previously discussed. Maybe weren't as exciting as they came across as, but we'll talk about them anyway. Just before we start, I would like any of the listeners who don't already follow us on Twitter to follow us on Twitter at PHFL Podcast, because our followers are about us and that's it at the moment, and there are more than us who listen to the podcast. I know, I can see the numbers, so please follow us on Twitter. And also subscribe to our YouTube page. It's the PHFL Podcast on YouTube as well. We put the video of these podcasts. There's not our faces on it at the moment, but possibly in the future, when we've all had haircuts and actually washed before we go for this podcast, we might put videos of us up.
Don't make me do
it. But we'll move on to our first game, which was, it feels ages ago now because this was a week ago. Now we're recording this on Thursday, but last week's Thursday Night Football was an NFC South matchup. Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta won 25 points to 17. My notes basically are on the Atlanta side of the ball that the Falcons tried to run quite a lot. There was 18 attempts for Gurley and 11 for Brian Hill, but Gurley was not hugely efficient at about a couple of yards a carry. And the big news was that Calvin Ridley kind of left halfway through the game with an injury for Atlanta, which looks like it might keep him out this week. He's still questionable in training. But Atlanta, the first two plays of the game were like 30-yard passes to Julio Jones, and I thought, well, here we go. This is going to be the Falcons of old again, but eventually settled down. And obviously, right at the end of the fourth quarter, the interception, as Carolina were trying to go up for a tying field goal, resulted in Atlanta winning the game. Kai, what was your thoughts on that game? Do you have any?
Wasn't the most exciting of games. I think, obviously, we'll come to it in the predictions, but I think we all thought the Panthers might win that. Obviously, the Falcons proved us all wrong. Didn't think the Panthers were very good at all. I think they only just scraped 300 yards of total offense between rushing and running the ball. And neither of the two kind of obvious wide receivers, and Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, did a whole lot. I mean, DJ Moore didn't have a reception until 2 minutes from the end, and he decided to get 2 for 55 yards, which accounts for almost all his fancy points this week. Whereas Curtis Samuel decided to sneak up out of nowhere in the last couple of weeks. I think he's had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, 2 of which have been receiving. One was a rushing touchdown, so they seem to be using him as almost like a dual threat thing. But yeah, I think the Falcons are kind of starting to find a wee bit of a groove. Despite obviously losing against the Lions, I think they've kind of found their form a wee bit.
Yes, I totally agree. I think obviously there's talk now for the Panthers that Christian McCaffrey will be coming back as well for this coming week. So I think the future is bright for them. They had been playing fairly well. This game, I think, was one of their worst performances they've had of late. But I think this NFC South, though Atlanta, perhaps the record doesn't show it, I think there's actually some fairly good teams in it. And especially now, as Mikey will say, Dan Quinn's no longer in charge at Atlanta. That they've got a chance.
Yeah, I think with the Panthers as well, it's McCaffrey coming back is come at the perfect time, because they did go 3-0 without him after they lost the first 2 games of the season, and now they've lost 3 in a row. So with him coming back, I think we spoke about it on one of the other podcasts, I think maybe 1 or 2 games after McCaffrey was out, that with McCaffrey coming back, because so much focus is put on him from the defensive side, that we spoke about maybe Mike Davis still being relevant for them. But just the fact that he's coming back in general is going to be massive for them, because they've hit a bit of dip in form and they've got some tough games coming up. But it'll be interesting to see, because we definitely know that this division is competitive, and the Panthers are definitely making it competitive. So it should be fun to watch that one as well.
I totally agree. And for everyone who likes listening to Mikey's dulcet tones, you'll get to listen to him even more now as we move on to our next game, because he was looking at our next game as well. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Pittsburgh ended up winning the game 28 points to 24 in a battle of the top of the AFC North. What are your takeaways from that game, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sunday was the three of us on our podcast group chat from maybe 5:30 on Sunday night until about 2 a.m. was just non-stop messages. Like, I would have loved to have seen how many messages combined it was, because all we did was just talk about football. I think it was a really entertaining game week. But the first thing about the Steelers-Ravens game is that pick-6 at the start of the game. It just set the tone for the game. I know that the Ravens were looking good through stretches, but you almost feel if that didn't happen, the Ravens probably would have won the game. Genuinely, I think that shook Lamar's confidence massively as well. But this game has been a massive rivalry over the years, obviously being a divisional game, and it was just a excuse me, it was just a totally old-fashioned slugfest. I thought there was fumbles, interceptions, hard hits, flags everywhere. So it was a scrappy game, but it was a very fun game to watch. I think I said before that the AFC runs through the Chiefs, but I think it has to run through Pittsburgh now. They're the only undefeated team still left. They're picking up big wins as well, especially against huge divisional rivals. I know people thought that the Steelers were going to be good this year now that Big Ben was back and they had a lot of pieces back from injury, but I don't think anybody expected them to be this good. And even, I know they're 6-2, but I don't think anybody expected the Ravens to be this poor. They've been sluggish. So I think that the Pittsburgh are going to win this division. And as we've said on previous podcasts as well, I would rather have an experienced quarterback in the playoffs against a young, exciting quarterback. So Big Ben has all the tools to succeed here.
Can I just play devil's advocate for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
No, you can't.
I actually think their defense, obviously, is amazing in all levels of the defense. Their receiving group, I think, is unbelievable. I think James Conner is great in the running game. Even the backups are good there. I think the weakness, if there is one in this team, is Big Ben. And I know that might sound like a strange thing to say, because Big Ben is probably going to be Hall of Fame at some point, especially with the Super Bowl rings. But I think the weakness there is Big Ben. Sometimes his decision making, I look at it and I'm like, why are you trying to throw it there? And I know that he's got the arm, but I think maybe since coming back from the injury, I don't know what it is, but I think if there's a weakness, and I know it's harsh to call Big Ben a weakness because he's still better than. I mean, we are doing a QB ranking special at some point, but I think he's still better than half the quarterbacks in the league. But I think if there is a weak link in that Pittsburgh team, it would be the way that Big Ben was played. See, if you had someone like Tom Brady in this Steelers team, I would say no doubt his decision making done, sorted, they've won the Super Bowl. But I think Big Ben is the link that might.
Is it almost a case as well that he doesn't need to be that good because the defense is so good in the run game and the receivers are good? Because I mean, we've seen it when Baltimore won the Super Bowl with obviously Ray Lewis and that crazy D, but Joe Flacco, he wasn't lighting it up, but he won a Super Bowl as a starting quarterback, and he didn't need to be good because the defensive side of the ball was so clinical. So I think it's a similar situation to that. But yeah, he doesn't need to be as previous Big Bens have been over the years. But it's good to see him back. He was missed last year massively. They obviously struggled with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. So good to see him back. And yeah, it'll be great to see him in the playoffs again. And the kind of matchups that he'll be in the playoffs are going to be very exciting.
Looking on the Ravens side of the ball, are they a better running team without Mark Ingram?
I think he use more options.
Yeah,
definitely. It doesn't look as if there's a distinct backup to Mark Ingram. It looked like they were kind of using. I've totally forgot his name now. J.K. Dobbins.
Dobbins
and
15
Gus
attempts.
Edwards.
Dobbins 15 attempts. Edwards 16 attempts. Lamar Jackson 16 attempts. They did rush 47 times.
I kind of feel like the Ravens have never really got going this season.
It's strange to say for a 5-2 team.
No, I know, but I think they've kind of faltered and stumbled to a few results. And I think you've seen it when they've kind of played someone like the Steelers. I know they were right in there the whole game, and arguably could have probably won it on that last drive. Reports say that Willie Snead is still lying there, and they've just dug a hole for him. I mean, the Ravens will still make the playoffs and they'll still have a good record, but I don't think they've quite been the Ravens of last year yet.
The reason I ask is because in one of the statistics I was listening to, it was J.K. Dobbins has forced the most missed tackles in his runs out of any running back with over 50 carries, and Mark Ingram is the worst in that metric. So Dobbins is the best and Mark Ingram's the worst. So that's why I was wondering if maybe they were better without Ingram back there to kind of muddy up the waters. But we'll see going forward what's going to happen in that game. But it was a very good AFC North game, and I think the two of them, as Mikey was saying, that rivalry's there. It's a really equal rivalry. I think that puts the Steelers one game ahead since the Harbaugh was there or something like that. It was something like 1919. It's a really good. That's the type of rivalry you want between two teams, where it's any team can win it. You know, you don't want something where someone's just getting pummeled all the time.
And obviously we're lucky enough to be able to get to see them again at some point, and potentially in the playoffs. You obviously never know, but we're guaranteed at least one more Steelers-Ravens game this season, which would be great.
Look forward to it. The next game of the week was also Mikey, having a look at this one. Miami with Tua's first start. We're playing at home to the Los Angeles Rams. Mikey, what happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is I've got some bad news, and that's that my first outlandish claim has came through with a big cross on it. The rest of them, obviously, we need to wait until the end of the season. Some of them have ticks on them already, but I've got my first wrong outlandish claim. I said in the podcast last week that Tua would get sacked 4 or 5 times against Aaron Donald and the Rams, but it's safe to say that they did not. I think he was only sacked once on the first play of the game, potentially, or the first drive.
Yeah.
But Dolphins win this game 28-17. Dolphins go to 4-3 on the season, which is huge. And considering how good the Rams have been, they're now 5-3. It's a massive, massive win for the Dolphins. The Miami were outgained by 326 yards in this game. Tua did not need to do anything. The Dolphins D were phenomenal. It's almost as if everybody knew that Tua was coming out of an injury and it was his first NFL start, and the whole team wanted to kind of rally around him and do him proud. And he could have been terrible, and they probably still would have won the game. I mean, he was just bang average. I think even Tua will be the first to tell you that. But just a crazy game, considering I think the Rams have been very good this season, lost to some big teams, but the Rams are 1-4 when Goff is blitzed 20 times or more. I mean, the Dolphins just laid the foundation for this win. That they were blitzing almost every play, it seemed. Goff was fumbling, throwing interceptions, poor passes all over the field. But the Dolphins looked fantastic here, really, really good. As we said, their offense really didn't need to show up at all because the defensive side put up so many points. So really, really good game to watch. We were all talking about it during it because I think we were expecting either a Tua disaster or a masterclass, but we got neither. But he won't care; they got the win.
I still think it's perhaps a bit kind on Tua to say that it was a fairly average game for him, because he did only complete 12 passes for 93 yards, and I know that he didn't have to do anything, but in any other given day, then that is a poor performance for a quarterback.
Yeah.
They were definitely protecting him, because his longest pass was a 15-yard pass.
Yeah. One thing I've got here as well is that this is the second time this season. No team has done it once this season. The Rams have now done it twice. The Rams held a team to under 100 passing yards and 100 rushing yards. So against Miami only had 90 total passing yards and 55 rushing yards. And when they played Washington only had 70 passing yards and 38 rushing yards. Just crazy. I think the Rams D is still one of the best in the league, but the Goff was horrendous this week. Really, really bad.
Yeah, well, Goff tried 61 pass attempts. He only completed 35 of them, but Cooper Kupp had 20 targets in this game.
Yeah.
Of those 61. Unbelievable.
Big game for him as well. The thing on the Dolphins side, because I feel that they deserve to be spoke about this week, is we were saying when Tua got announced as a starter that we thought it was a really bad decision, obviously, because they were 3-3. Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing well, but now looking back on it, I think this was a win-win for them and Brian Flores, because they were playing the Rams. They were playing one of the best defensive units in football, probably the best individual football player in the NFL, and Aaron Donald. If they'd lost this game and Tua had struggled, you would have been like, well, it was the Rams, so fair enough. We'll see what's going to happen next week and next week. And if they won, it was fantastic. So I feel it was actually a win-win for Brian Flores, and he made the right decision. And they're 4-3, and with the way that AFC division's looking, if they put again a couple of big results and win their divisional games, who knows? They could be in the playoffs. And I don't think that they will, but it's a really, really fun situation to watch.
I have a different theory, and you know I like conspiracies, so here is mine. The Miami Dolphins have got the Houston Texans first round pick, which is currently projected to be around pick 4, pick 5 at the moment, if Houston don't improve. I think that they have played with Tua for the rest of this season, and they'll see how he plays. Because he's not very big, but he's also not hugely mobile. So he's not like a Kyler Murray who's small but can run about, and he's not like, a Herbert or an Allen who's big and big arm and stuff like that. So I don't think they're sure if Tua is their quarterback for the future. I think they're wondering if this is someone that they're going to have as their quarterback. So they're going to play him for this season and see if he does work. Great, they'll keep him. See if he doesn't work. They've got Houston's pick, which is probably going to be an early first round pick. They've got their own, and if they're really bad, theirs also might be there. They'll pick up one of these other quarterbacks in the draft, or even do some trading to move up to get either Lawrence or Fields, because they know that that's a quarterback. They'll definitely take them. So that I think they're going to spend the second half of this season working out if Tua is their quarterback, and then make that decision at the end of the season. That's my conspiracy theory.
It's bamboozled.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he was a 6th overall pick. I don't know if you would give up on him that easy, to be honest. I honestly think if, barring injuries in college last season, if Tua didn't have the hip surgery, he would have been the number 1 pick, in my opinion. I know Joe Burrow really came out of nowhere in his final season with LSU, but Tua was the whole tank for Tua last year and things like that, before Joe Burrow just started to completely play lights out. So I think, injuries aside, he is a franchise quarterback, but obviously that's a big thing. The one comparison I had, the way that we've seen Ben DiNucci, which we'll talk about, against the Eagles, some of the hits that he was taking, that's the NFL for you. That happens. Tua is obviously a better quarterback, but he gets hit by these Khalil Mack type players, Chandler Jones, things like that. Who knows what's going to happen injury wise? So I do understand where you're coming from, but they drafted him for a reason, and I think he is the quarterback of the future, barring any big injuries.
Well, we'll see what happens at the draft. We'll see what happens. Moving on to the next game, Kai had this one. The first half was surprisingly close in this game. For a while, I think a lot of people were wondering what was going on, but in the end, Kansas City beat the New York Jets 35 points to 9. Kai, I know it's strange to ask, do you have anything to say about this game? It was a big scoring game for Kansas City, but for the second game in a row, they brought their backups out at the end of the game. They were so far ahead. So what do you have to say about it?
I think we all expected the Chiefs to win, but I think they kind of did it pretty emphatically. Turned into a bit of a rout at the end, and obviously, like you say, the backups were out for a period towards the end. And it just kind of turned into the Patrick Mahomes show. I think he was just having great fun. Didn't really need to what's the word? Didn't really need to have to overextend himself. He just kind of did everything very much within his means, and made it a really easy game for him. Obviously, the big talking point coming into this week was Le'Veon Bell playing against his former team. I thought the rushing game was pretty quiet in Kansas. Didn't think they did a lot on the ground.
Utterly
6 carries each for Bell and Edwards-Helaire. Less than 50 yards, or round about 50 yards. Bell was 3 for 3 on receptions, but they didn't really seem to use either of them a hell of a lot. So, I mean, I would say from a fantasy point of view, both of them are trending towards being pretty useless.
Tell Mikey that, because we just had a lovely trade where he took Clyde Edwards-Helaire off me, so thanks, Mikey.
I wouldn't say that's probably unfair. They will still both have good outlook in fantasy, but I just don't see them being but they're probably more likely to be bust than boom. I think their ceiling's probably closed quite a wee bit. Tyreek Hill decided to come back and get himself involved for the first time in a while. 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, didn't really have a lot of pressure on either of his catches. I think he was just running about having a bit of fun as well. But yeah, Chiefs probably won that with ease and didn't really need to do much. I would say the less said about the Jets, the better. I think they were something like 200 odd yards total offense, which is absolutely garbage. And the only other thing I have to say is that Adam Gase is currently 7-16 as the Jets coach. And I was thinking, like, when is the final straw? When do the Jets just...
I think it was that much.
Aye, honestly, 7 wins was surprised me. They all came last season, obviously. I think he finished last season 7-9.
Yeah, that's true, actually, yeah, that's true.
So he already has almost as many losses this season as he's had in his whole career as a Jets coach. What I didn't realise is that the Jets are obviously still paying off their former coach, Todd Bowles, and he is, I think they stopped paying him off at the end of this year, as in like calendar year 2020. But I feel like going into the new year, if they're already that far behind, I don't think there's any benefit in sacking Adam Gase at that point. I think if they still have him into the new year, I think they'll just stick with him until the end of the season and get rid of him.
Well, they have said, apparently the management and the Jets have said that Gase is part of the solution. Is what they've said. I saw that online, that they've said that he is part of the solution to getting out of this. And I'm like, you can't be the solution and the problem. Like that doesn't quite work. But we'll see what happens there. I just want to quickly... on you go, Mikey.
Oh no! All I was going to say is we spoke in a previous podcast about what we thought the Jets' records were going to be. I said they were going to be 1-16. What did you two say? Do you remember?
I might have given them a win.
Maybe 1-16 if you're lucky, but I think we're all in agreement that 0-16 is a possibility.
Cannot see them winning a game. I just physically can't do it. I mean, Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, but I just cannot see them winning a game this season. They are horrendous.
Monday night against the Patriots this week. There we go. My Adams outlandish claim of the week. My other question was just on the other side of the ball. I maybe have missed this, but when did we start calling Tyreek Hill Cheetah?
Oh, that's been ever since he came in the league.
For ages.
Oh, I'd never heard...
They call him the Cheetah.
I'd never heard...
I'm pretty sure that's his Instagram social media handle as well.
See, I'd never heard them refer to him in a game as it, and then this past couple of weeks, like, they've just been referring to him as, and there's Cheetah doing whatever, and I'm like, wait, what? Have I missed
Who's that?
So at least I now know. But yes, an easy win for Kansas City, no surprise there. Moving on to the next game, where I think all of us, we'll get on to it at the end of the show, I think all of us thought it'd be a fairly easy win for Green Bay, but instead... Dalvin Cook had something to say. The score was Green Bay 22, Dalvin Cook 28, because the rest of Minnesota didn't do anything. Dalvin Cook had 30 carries for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins only attempted 14 passes in the whole game. Like, the Green Bay run defense is so bad that they didn't even... the Minnesota didn't even have to pretend they were going to throw the ball to get a run. Like, they just went, we're going to run, and the Green Bay defense said, well, there's nothing we can do about it because we are the worst team in football against the run statistically. It was bad, but Dalvin Cook was very impressive on his return from injury. On the Green Bay side of the ball, surprise, Aaron Rodgers passing to Devontae Adams. 7 catches, 53 yards, 3 touchdowns. Basically, it was Cook against Adams. That's all it was there. The interesting fact I had from this game was in the first half, there were 4 possessions. That was all. And each of them went for a touchdown. It was very, very efficient from the offenses, but mainly
long scoring drives. Yeah,
that was for mainly Dalvin Cook. But the thing that gets me with this Green Bay defense now, I apologise, Kai, because I know that we slag you off for talking about the Eagles too much, but I'm just quickly going to talk for the Green Bay defence here, is that most of Dalvin Cook's runs, they didn't even get a hand on him. He was just running with no one anywhere, like through the line with no one there. Mikey, are you just as disappointed with this defence as I am?
Yes and no. I mean, first game of the season when we played the Vikings, we had a safety, I'm pretty sure we had a Pick.6 as well, but that was mainly from the secondary. I think our defensive line is struggling. I think we missed Kenny Clark massively.
Yep.
But in recent years, we haven't been a big defensive unit. We have struggled at times, and we do get involved in shootouts quite a lot, which is good because we do have Aaron Jones, who's just a touchdown monster, and Devontae Adams and Rodgers. But there is games where this is going to happen. Simple as that. And Dalvin Cook just found the right holes. I don't think it was anything to do with how good the Vikings' offensive line was. I think it was in two parts. Dalvin Cook was just on his game. There's no other reason for it. He was phenomenal, and our defensive line just couldn't deal with him. But besides, I think we do need some pieces in there on both sides of the ball. But it was just a poor performance. But I like to think that, as we've said in the past, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have back-to-back bad games, and he didn't have a bad game this week. So hopefully bounce back with a big win against probably our biggest, trying to get the San Francisco monkey off our backs from previous seasons.
Yes, for our Thursday Night Football, which is fairly COVID affected this week, but we'll get to that later on when we do a quick prediction for tonight. But as you say, Rodgers didn't play particularly badly. 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, passer rating of over 110. I feel it's a bit kind on Kirk Cousin looking at his passer rating to give him a passer rating of 138 since he only threw the ball 14 times. But I suppose it's all to do with
a deduction based on how little you throw the ball.
Yeah, but
you need to throw the ball more than a certain number of times to gain a rating in the first place.
Yeah, but it was the Dalvin Cook show, and I think every team in football would like to have a running back like Dalvin Cook. But yeah. We'll move on from that one quickly. Kai, you had the next game. It was the Indianapolis Colts at the Detroit Lions. 41 points to 21. The Colts won that game.
I think the scoreline's slightly. I don't think the scoreline quite reflects how the game went. I think it looks a lot better on the Colts than it actually was. Don't think either team was particularly good. The Colts just scored all their points in 2 separate quarters, and then the other 2 just decided to lounge about. I think they scored 20 points in the second quarter and then 21 points in the fourth quarter.
They must like playing in that direction. That must have been what it was. Yeah.
Whatever way they were going for the first and the third quarter, something just wasn't quite right for them. The sun was in Philip Rivers' eyes or something in that covered stadium. But yeah, I think Philip Rivers was the one to kind of drive it on, and then the Lions just fell to pieces on D, and those 2 quarters. To go to the other side of the ball and go to the Lions, 29 yards of rushing offense.
I'm just looking at the stats there. It's really efficient.
29 yards.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson 5 attempts, 7 yards, and DeAndre Swift 6 attempts for 1 yard.
DeAndre Swift was running backwards, I think. I don't know what he was doing. But then they had 340 yards through the air. Like, Matt Stafford's clearly gone, stuff you guys. I'm just giving it to everyone else. Considering Kenny Golladay was out as well. Like, bit bizarre, but Jones got the touchdowns. Hawkinson seemed to see most of the targets. I think he was the only one with double figures targets.
Yeah.
But Marvin Hall had over 100 receiving yards. He seems to have got all the big gains. Not much else really to say in the game. It wasn't the most exciting in the world. The Colts are now at the top of the AFC South. The Titans tied on 5-2. They just kind of snuck up there while the Titans were kind of stumbling a wee bit. But they do have the Ravens, the Titans, the Packers, and then the Titans again in their next 4 games. I think there's a very high possibility that they come out of that with no wins.
Well, for my Super Bowl pick to be correct, I'm hoping they do get some wins. On the Indianapolis side of the ball, for the rushing game, obviously Jordan Wilkins had most of the carries and the touchdown. Jonathan Taylor was fairly poor, but there's been talk that was apparently because he had an ankle injury, which no one had been talking about. I don't quite know if it was he had it before the game or if he got it in the game, but
It's kind of a bit of a grey area, I think, by the looks of it. I think the stats kind of cover it up a wee bit. Sorry, the stats point towards there being something kind of strange going on, but nobody really knows what.
Yeah.
The Lions, sorry, just I like my stats. The Lions are now 5-14 at home since 2014, which is the second worst record in the NFL. Like, I don't think you would ever have guessed that, but I don't know. I always find the Lions to be a pretty decent team, and you would think most people would have a better home record than they would on the road.
Well, I still question how Matt Patricia has a job there, because he doesn't have a winning record, and there's just constant.
Is it his pedigree from New England as defensive coordinator?
I hope it's not his style, because he looks like a slob. He doesn't come across as someone who looks like a head coach, but
he would fit well in this podcast.
Oh, 100%.
Beards and not washed.
Oh yeah. Kai's looking in disgust as if it was he's not.
Kai with the relatively short hair, the severe lack of facial hair.
I mean,
and the physique of an athlete.
You've not commented on if you've washed yet or not, though, Kai. That's the only thing.
Aye, that can go unnoticed. The green mist on the screens.
But yeah,
covering
that was though a high scoring game. I think I projected the Colts to win that, and they did. The next game on our Sunday afternoon slate of games was Las Vegas Raiders against Cleveland. I'm not going to let the two of you talk about this because it was not a good game, so I'm going to do a quick monologue and then move on to the next one. So the Raiders won the game 16 points to 6. The highlights for the game were Landry's one-handed catch, where I think Mikey was like, "Oh, he's learnt that off OBJ." But it was unbelievably windy. There were very tough conditions. It wasn't a great game. A lot of the kicks at one end was fine, but the other end they were even like 5-6 yards outside the right hand upright, and it was still going left. It was crazy, but yeah, not a great game. Let's move on. That's what I've said so far. So we're going to move on because it was the next.
Please
game,
move on.
Yeah, the next game was also one of mine, and it was the Tennessee Titans at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals got behind early on and couldn't catch up. The Titans got behind early, couldn't catch up. I think the Bengals are a good team. I think they've even without Mixon, their running game was all right. But their receivers are really good. I think their defense is fairly solid, and their one weakness is their offensive line, and the Titans couldn't capitalize on that because the Titans' rush is so bad. Like, they don't have any pass rush at all. The couple of times they got to Burrow as well, Burrow got out the pocket. There was one when he appeared to be tackled. Like, there was 2 or 3 folk on him, and somehow he appeared with the ball out and threw it. It was unbelievable.
3 separate people tried to tackle him on that one play, and he managed to duck under every one of them.
Yeah, it was...
Justin Herbert would have ducked under 5.
We said, moving on, we said that I said on a previous podcast that when you looked at the draft class of the Dolphins and the Bengals bringing in the franchise quarterbacks, Miami brought in a lot of offensive linemen to build around Tua over the coming years. I think Bengals in their 7 draft picks only had 1, and it shows just now they really, really struggle in their offensive line, I think, and it is going to hurt Joe Burrow this season, and perhaps maybe next season if they don't continue to build around that. That's the one point that they need to do. They've got good catchers, they've got good runners. They are a few pieces away on D. I think they maybe need to be better on secondary because they are losing a lot of yardage to deep balls, but their main priority this off-season must be to protect Joe Burrow for next season.
Yep, I totally agree with you there. On the Tennessee side of the ball, Corey Davis, again, with the lead target share with 10 targets, and A.J. Brown with 7 targets. Kai, I'll ask you this because you were fairly unhappy after our waivers went through in our fantasy. Do you think Corey Davis is someone you should be targeting? Is he now becoming one of the favoured pieces in this offense, or has it just been because AJ Brown was being shadowed by the best corner?
I think you've seen it since week 1 that Tannehill does like kind of spreading it about quite a bit. Obviously, AJ Brown was out for a couple of weeks. I think 2 or 3, potentially 3 or 4 actually. So within that time, obviously, he had to look elsewhere. It looked like Adam Humphries seemed to be getting a lot of the carries then. John O'Smith at tight end was getting a lot of the targets as well. And Corey Davis had kind of been just kind of ticking along, and then this week all of a sudden kind of blew up a bit, even with AJ Brown in the team. I can see that continuing to be a thing. I think the issue, and we discussed it last week with Green Bay and their lack of a wide receiver too, is that I don't think the Titans have had a defined wide receiver too so far this season. And I think when you've got someone as good as AJ Brown, he's probably going to be shadowed by the best corner on the team and potentially even like doubled up on. So if you have someone like Corey Davis, who is, I'm not saying equally as capable as AJ Brown, but he's still a capable receiver. I think you'll probably see an upturn in his targets and receptions and stuff in the next couple of weeks. Hence why I was so devastated when somebody managed to sneak in. It wasn't that, if it had just been that, I would have been annoyed, but it was my first and second picks off the waivers both got nicked off me.
Oh well, that's all I've got to say. In terms of, they drafted Corey Davis to be the number 1 receiver because he was the 4th or 5th pick in the draft when they picked him.
Yeah.
So like he certainly is someone who should be acting as a number 1 receiver. I think the two of them, between Davis and Brown, that could be unbelievable. If Tannehill decides to get back to the form that he showed at the start of the season and at the end of last year, because I feel the last few games he's not been as good as he had been. Derrick Henry yet again over 100 yards and a touchdown. Nothing to comment really there.
And it was a quiet game for him.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I've just brushed over 100 yards and a touchdown. No surprises.
That's what we were talking about with Alvin Kamara as well. He has 150 scrimmage yards and you're like, God, that's poor.
Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable. Both Samaje Perine and Gio Bernard got a touchdown in the rushing side of the game for the Bengals. I think they'll look forward to Mixon coming back because neither of them are particularly big, and Mixon will just go through people when he eventually does come back. But yeah, I think it was all in all a good game. I think Cincinnati were certainly worth the win. They certainly deserved it. I thought they didn't do anything too special, but they were solid to win the game. I think the same with Tennessee. I think none of them played particularly badly. It was actually quite a good game of football, and Cincinnati just got ahead and Titans couldn't catch up. Mikey, you are now going to be talking about our next game, where the New England Patriots travelled to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills won 24 points to 21, but it could so easily have been different, couldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I said it in the group chat or if I said it to Kai separately when the Patriots were doing on their final drive. I think there was just over a minute left in the clock and they were about midfield and they had 2 timeouts as well. And I said, they have all the time in the world. That was all I said. They've got 2 timeouts. They can still run the ball. They weren't under a serious pressure. They weren't down by 4 either. So if it came to it, they could have hit the field goal to take it to overtime. And I always say if the team that takes it to overtime usually has the momentum to win the game, regardless of if they get the ball in overtime. But obviously, Cam Newton fumbled the ball. Silly mistake. It's been spoken about for years, the way Cam runs with the ball. He has it out from his body. He's holding it with the one hand. He never really tucks it into himself. And it showed, obviously, with the fumble, it cost him the game. But in my opinion, it cost a lot more than the game. This was a complete changing of the guard in that division. Since 2000, there's been 38 games between the two of them. Do any of you know how many the Bills have won?
I know that they certainly haven't won any since McDermott has been the Bills head coach. That's all I know. I'm going to suggest...
Guess it hazard a guess?
In less than 5.
Yeah, I was going to say 3.
Well, in the middle, 4. 4 wins.
There we go.
Patriots have had 34 since 2000. So this was more than just an individual regular season division game. This was about so much more. The one thing that is gutting about this game is the fact that the Bills fans weren't in the stadium for this, because they would have loved to be there for that first win. And I think since maybe 2016, and it just shows that the Bills are probably going to run away with this division. I like the fact that the Bills and Dolphins need to play each other as well, but you Bills have the most talent in that division to run away with that and get the playoff spot from there. But But yeah, huge win for Buffalo in more ways than one. But it all comes down to that Cam Newton fumble. It was ridiculous, silly mistake.
Yep, just looking at other experts talking about that fumble, he's holding it in the wrong hand. I know as you're talking about his running style, but apparently I'm not an NFL player, so I don't know this. But apparently, when you're taught about running, you put it in the hand that is as far away from like the defensive line and stuff as possible, so that they can't just punch it out. They have to get round you to get to the ball. And Cam was just holding it on the side, and you saw that lineman just come and literally just punch the ball out. It was so easy to do. On the other side of the ball, it was equal rushing attempts, 14 each for Singletary and Moss, with Moss getting the 2 touchdowns. Possibly changing of the guard at the running back position for the Bills. Singletary obviously has had most of the carries. Moss was injured for a couple of games there, but it looks like Moss certainly is the goal line back. And it looks like he was being used a lot more as well. So that'll be interesting to see. Moss was someone else who I was looking for in fantasy. I think Kai was looking for him as well, but neither of us got him. Yeah, so
I think you could potentially be right in terms of the running backs in Buffalo. I think Devin Singletary's not really set the world alight so far this season. He's shown glimpses of being good, but it just looks like he struggles to kind of break through people. He's not very big for a start. He's a very, very small running back. Yeah, I think that was maybe the turning point there.
Yes, I think so as well. And Stephon Diggs, another 6 receptions, 92 yards, most targeted receiver. I'm just looking at the stats there, right? Stephon Diggs was targeted 9 times, and no one else was targeted more than 2 times.
Jeez.
Right, I think it's a bit obvious who Allen's trying to pass the ball to.
Stephon Diggs effect, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable. Well, Kai, we'll move on to the next game which you had. You get to talk about your boy Herbert again, but the Chargers were at the Broncos. The Broncos won 31 points to 30. Now, here's my stat. No, I'm not going to steal the stat off you. I'm sure you're going to have I'm sure you're going to have this stat for how poor the Chargers are at holding on to leads.
I don't actually have it written down. I've just noticed that. I'll let you get it at the end, but I have a few other ones. Yeah, I'll talk about Herbert first, right? I think he somehow managed to have a really good day, but also have a really bad day at the same time.
Explain.
And it's kind of hard to slate him, considering he had almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions, and it looked like he was kind of playing a wee bit more erratic. I think that his inexperience in the NFL started to show, certainly in the second half. When they're leading by so much, I think you just need someone with a cool head. He was trying. I mean, I think that he did complete one to Mike Williams, which, according to stats, had a 19% completion probability. So if you were to take that 100 times, only 19 times would you complete it. And it was the most improbable completion by Justin Herbert this season, apparently. So as much as he is playing well and he's kind of got the confidence to throw the pass that maybe some quarterbacks wouldn't, or that you wouldn't expect a rookie quarterback to throw, he maybe needs to be a bit more sensible about when he throws that pass and when he maybe just tries to work the ball up the field strategically, because then I think it was potentially on the next drive after that touchdown he tried almost the same pass, and it didn't quite work this time because the corner had clearly clicked onto the fact that Mike Williams was going to be the threat in that corner, and he just looked over his shoulder and picked the ball out there.
I think that separates, especially as a rookie, the best quarterbacks from the... Yeah. I'm not saying he's average or bad, but it's that next level. I think you would have probably seen it with Kyler Murray last year. He wasn't playing those stupid throws, and Herbert, just in this game alone, not the full season, but this game, he could have went down the Kyler Murray path and been sensible with the ball. Or the person I feel that he was most compared to in this game is Daniel Jones, who just makes throws for the sake of it when he's pressured and he could throw the ball out of bounds. And it's not a bad thing on Herbert, obviously still learning in this league, but that was the one, obviously the most disappointing thing, probably looking at the Chargers loss this week, is that just a few silly mistakes, but it happens as a rookie anyway.
Herbert's actually reminded me a lot of Josh Allen, not only in physique, and all that, but like the way he's playing, like that big arm, launching down the field. Josh Allen at the start of his career, there was folk going, "Oh, is he a bit erratic?" I feel as if a few years in the league, you might mature and turn into something.
I think in a kind of strange way, I think potentially it could be a good thing for Herbert. I think
that's what I was going to say there. Yeah.
The last couple of weeks have been great for him, and he's maybe just needing. I'm not saying he needs brought back down to earth, because I think he seems like a very grounded person. I think he won't have got too carried away. But I think it's maybe just a wee reminder that you're in the NFL. Like, just be sensible about it.
He'll learn more from that loss than if they would have won that game, for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think if they'd won that game, I think he would have probably fallen into a wee bit of false sense of security of I've actually played quite badly there.
Yeah, this performance that happened this week would have happened at some point in the season had he won this week. So it was going to happen at some point, and the Chargers aren't going to win a Super Bowl this year or anything, and it's their first season under Herbert. So it was a good lesson for him to learn, for sure.
Definitely. And I think kind of still talking about the Chargers, I'll go into the Broncos in a second, because the Broncos did pretty well. They had 200 yards, over 200 yards of rushing offense from the Chargers, so obviously without Austin Eckler, they seem to be coping quite well.
Who's this boy Pope? None of us really.
I don't know where he came from. I think folk were expecting either Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly, and then this
came from
I don't even know. Good keeper, I've heard. I don't really understand where he's come from, but he seems to pop up out of nowhere and do quite a lot of work. But to move to the Broncos side of the ball, very much a tale of two halves.
Can I quickly jump in with can I quickly jump in with these stats you're talking about for the Chargers?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
So the Chargers are the first team in NFL history to squander 4 straight leads of 16 points or more. Now, we were talking about the Lions throwing away games that they go ahead in, and the Falcons throwing away, but 4 straight leads of 16 points or more, the first time ever. And halfway through the third quarter, they were up 24-3.
Yeah. According
to Pro Football Reference, they had a 99.3% chance of winning the game at that point.
If you're talking about the Chargers, you shouldn't lose a game from that point.
No, you really shouldn't.
Regardless of who's on the other side of the ball, like, you just shouldn't.
Exactly.
You should be good enough to do that. But yeah, tale of two halves very much for the Broncos. In the first half, without looking at the stats, do you think you could tell me their net rushing yardage?
Is it not something stupid like 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 net rushing yards for the first half, and then in the second half they scored 28 points.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened at half time, but I mean, reminiscent of like a Sir Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment in the dressing room or something. I think someone went through them. Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon were relatively quiet, despite Philip Lindsay's big 55-yard dash. Aside from that, they only had 54 yards between them. I have a wee question, but I'll ask you that at the end, actually. And Drew Lock managed to engineer a final drive touchdown to get the win, despite his questionable dancing to celebrate. I'm not entirely sure what that was.
That was
and I think I would probably recommend he never does it again, because it totally ruined what was a very impressive win.
Could you
Justin Herbert did that, you'd be like, oh, that's so cool.
Can I ask you, Kai, could you tell us who caught the touchdowns for Denver?
In the same way that the guy on Red Zone did, it was Albert O. Because I am not going to try and say that second name. I think I would probably drown in slivers.
Ogwebunan, something like that.
I actually have 2 questions for you. Sorry, I've just for both of you. So the Broncos got to 3-4 in that division. I know it's not obviously a great record, but do you think there could be a battle for second place in that division going on now? I'm not necessarily saying a playoff place.
There'll be a battle for sure.
Obviously, there's going to be a battle, but like, do you think that, because obviously the Raiders are only at 4-3, the Broncos at 3-4.
I'm going to say
I'm not convinced by the Raiders, but
I'm going to say yes, but not involving the Broncos.
Do you think the Chargers will get there?
I think Chargers and the Raiders will have a fight, but I think the Raiders will just do it now. I thought the Chargers at the start of the season. But
it's interesting because yes, the the Las Vegas Raiders are 4-3 at the moment. Mm-hmm. They still have to play Denver twice, LA twice, and then Kansas as well. So they, out of their remaining, what's that one?
9.
Out of their remaining 9 games, they've got 5 divisional games, which is huge. I know I said that I think they would make the playoffs, but that is huge. It almost seems every season there's a couple of teams that literally 60 to 70% of the remaining games are all divisional games, which always makes it really exciting. But I think I think Denver are a quietly good team. I don't think they light up the box score or must-watch TV, but I think there could potentially be a 3-way race for second place, and I personally think the Raiders will get it.
I think obviously you've got to look at the fact as well that the Broncos have kind of been a bit unfortunate so far this season in the way of they've not really had a settled offense until now. They obviously had quarterback troubles through the first few weeks. They were onto a third string quarterback at one point. Obviously, Philip Lindsay's been in and out. Melvin Gordon had a wee bit of a naughtiness a few weeks in and managed to get himself done. So I can see the Broncos potentially kind of settling into if they get everyone fit. Obviously Noah Fant actually as well. Noah Fant was out for a few weeks. If they get everyone fit and they can kind of make a push for the next few games, I think that division could end up quite interesting. My other question for you is: do you think Jerry Jeudy, considering how good he was in college and how highly touted he was, do you think he's struggling a bit to adapt to the NFL? He only has 1 touchdown through all the weeks. Now, I'm not saying we base things on touchdowns. His highest yardage total was this week was 73. Do you think, in comparison to other rookies, now I think this is probably going to be a yes, but do you think he is struggling to live up to his reputation from college?
I wouldn't say he's struggling because, as we spoke about quarterbacks, if you have a top 10 pick, it means you're most likely a very poor franchise. Whether it was just a one-off bad season or you've been struggling for a couple of years. So when quarterbacks go into these poor teams, usually they struggle as well. So he's went into, a team that doesn't light up the box score every week. That's probably a bit punch-mouth football. Whereas you've got Chase Claypool on a 7-0 team, and you've got Justin Jefferson on a team that's throwing the ball a lot because they've been behind most weeks. So I don't think it's any indication on him as a player. I think it's just not been as seamless a transition for him to the Denver Broncos.
I think he's looked quite good, but I think the reason that perhaps the stats suggest he's not been that good is the schedule the Broncos have had, because they've played the Titans, who have a good secondary. They've played the Steelers, and we know what their defense is like. They've played the Buccaneers, and we know what their defense is like. They played the Jets, and the Jets' defense is better than their offense, but they played the Patriots, which again have had a good defense. The Chiefs, who I think their defense is fairly underrated, and then the Chargers this week. So he hasn't had really, really easy games to start off his NFL career. What do you think, Kai?
I wasn't necessarily suggesting they had struggled. I was just asking. I was curious to see.
What's your opinion?
I would say through 7 games he's not quite been what you would expect of him. I think if you're a Broncos fan, you probably think, oh my God, we're getting like one of these top 3 receivers out of this. And I think when you look to, now obviously you've given reasons for why Jefferson and Claypool are obviously better, but when you look to Claypool, you look to Justin Jefferson, and then you look to Jerry Jeudy, who yes has looked good in spells, but hasn't been quite consistent. I think you probably want a bit more from him, but I think come next season or towards the tail end of this season, I think he might start to pick up a wee bit. I would like to think he would pick up a wee bit if they start to get more favourable matchups, and maybe in a strange way, if they're losing more games, I think if they're throwing the ball a bit more, you might kind of see him come into fruition. But
I think as well, I think Drew Lock will eventually improve. I don't have him hugely rated at the moment, but in his 4 years at college, he had 4 different offensive coordinators. In his 2 years in the NFL so far, he's had 2 different offensive coordinators. He's never had the same playbook every year. So I think if you give him a bit of consistency, he's got a chance of learning that, improving, and that will obviously bring up the rest of his team as well.
I also think in the long term, that's a good thing, because that's what happened with Joe Burrow. He was at Ohio State, transferred to LSU, had 2 different offensive coordinators. Now he's at the Bengals. Long term, you're learning different things. And Drew Lock having that, I didn't know he had that many offensive coordinators. That 3-4 years time, that's going to benefit him massively.
Yeah, I think it will, but I think it's a struggle for him at the moment because he's never had that.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't know everything because it's like learning 6 different recipe books over the course of 6 years. You're not going to remember them all off by heart, but I think he will certainly improve over the next few years. For the Russian side of that game, just quickly for me, I think Philip Lindsay looks a lot better than Melvin Gordon, and if they just gave Lindsay the ball more, then like they did last year, but we'll see what happens there. Move on to the next game, which was one of mine. San Francisco at Seattle. Let's talk about Seattle first. That DK Metcalf first touchdown
shouldn't be allowed.
Shouldn't be. I don't understand how he's managed to make that touchdown, but it was unbelievable. DJ Dallas, the 4th string running back, manages to get himself a couple of touchdowns in that game. But on the defensive side of the ball for Seattle, I thought Bobby Wagner was brilliant. The number of times he put pressure on that quarterback was unbelievable. I thought he was definitely worth his money there. I think we had a discussion in our wee group chat during the game, and I was saying that Wagner for middle linebacker for the Seahawks and then Warner middle linebacker for the 49ers, like they are 2 of the best middle linebackers I think I've seen in the NFL. Unbelievable. Obviously, on the San Francisco side of the ball, the main story was Jimmy G injured out on IR, George Kittle injured out on IR, Tevin Coleman played 3 snaps and then was injured again and went off. They've got $80 million worth of cap space on their IR at the moment.
Did we not say it last week or the week before? Last thing you might have mentioned it, Mikey, and we were just talking about it. It's how unfortunate the 49ers have been with injuries along with the Eagles. Like, they just can't seem to catch a break.
Mikey's
why are you screwing your face up, Mikey?
If there's anybody that's been injury prone in your division, it's been the Cowboys. Eagles are an afterthought when it comes to injuries.
It was you that said 2 weeks ago, I feel sorry for the Eagles because they can't catch a break with injuries.
Well, I changed my mind because they can't catch passes either, and it hurts my fantasy teams.
There we go. Very narrow-minded approach. I was merely stating a point, but Michael likes to bring it back to himself
go back
again.
To that, 49ers have been absolutely...
That was the main point I was making there. That was the main point I was making.
Go back to it. They've been decimated by injuries because they've had a relatively favourable run so far this season. I mean, they've played the Jets and the Giants, and that was when their big injuries came. They've had the Eagles, Miami. It's just been a tough start to the season for them. But in saying that just shows how good Kyle Shanahan is, and the rest of the roster is, that they're still 4-4 and they're still in the mix, so to say. So, but 2 very tough games coming up against Green Bay, New Orleans, and then actually just looking at it now, they've got the Rams and then the Bills. So 4 very, very tough games coming up. This will probably make or break this season.
Is Jimmy Garoppolo's time in San Francisco over?
Yes.
Yes? No?
Yeah, I think so.
I think possibly. I think this is the excuse they needed. I know he took them to a Super Bowl last year, but really, I think we've talked about this before. It's a system. It's a running game mainly. You can put any quarterback in it. Hence, they put Nick Mullins in it, and Nick Mullins looked good when he came on.
As we said earlier, he Joe Flacco'd himself into a Super Bowl basically.
Yeah. So that's why I think that's why he's done. I think he'd have liked to have moved off him because he realised he wasn't what they thought he was going to be. But when someone takes you to a Super Bowl, you can't really go, I'm going to chuck you out because the fans won't agree with you. But now these injuries are going to give him an excuse, I think, for Shanahan. I think he's going to go, right, look, he gets injured all the time. We can't rely on him. We need someone else. And I think the San Francisco fans will be...
flip that then, if the Rams this season were in the exact same situation that the 49ers are in, where they lose Aaron Donald, because obviously they've lost, 49ers have lost Bosa for the season, things like that, and Jared Goff is really struggling, and then he's injured for 6 weeks, having taken them to a Super Bowl and lost, and obviously not performing kind of since then, would you think that if it was the same situation with the Rams that they would move on from Jared Goff?
I think Jared Goff's rubbish.
I think there's too much draft capital behind Goff. There's not for Garoppolo, but there is for Goff.
Possibly. That's what I think as well.
The one thing I think is that, see the Jets, if they get the first overall pick, and they choose to ship Sam Darnold, and the San Francisco 49ers are looking for a new quarterback, Sam Darnold could go into this offense, and I think he's a huge improvement on Garoppolo.
What I did see, I don't know how much this was actually true or like a serious thing, or whether someone was just trying to wind folk up, and I'm just going to say it now to try and wind both of you up. I saw someone saying that Aaron Rodgers has been a long-term admirer of the 49ers, and
he's from California.
Yeah, so folks say that's where he could potentially want to finish his career. I think that would be quite funny.
No, I can understand.
I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers end up there.
I can understand
and
that.
See if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up going. I think that could potentially.
Rodgers wanted to be drafted. The 49ers had the number 1 pick in the draft when Rodgers was drafted. And who did they go with instead? Was it
I can't remember that far back.
No, but anyway,
he's 21. He's been in that league about that amount of time.
He was obviously very upset at the fact that the California kid obviously didn't get drafted by the team that he supports. So he's been outspoken about his support for the 49ers, but obviously with the whole Jordan Love situation, he has said that he might not finish his career in Green Bay, and never thought about it until right now, but 100% would not be surprised if that happened. I think that would be a good fit for him.
Going somewhere hot.
Sorry?
It makes a huge amount of sense going somewhere hot. Think Brady. He was at New England. It's not particularly pleasant, and basically he's retired to Tampa Bay where it's nice and hot. Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay where it's pouring with snow in the middle of November. No thank you, not for me. I'll go and play my last 2 or 3 years in the nice hot Californian sun. I can 100% see that happen.
The first pick in the 2005 NFL draft, the San Francisco 49ers selected Alex Smith.
Well, I mean, that wasn't a really bad pick.
No, he was a great college quarterback at Utah. So, but I totally understand if Aaron Rodgers was to go back to California to finish his career.
Yeah, I agree.
And potentially win a ring with that D.
A lot of people, I say a few I've seen online, have then suggested that if Garoppolo leaves 49ers, I know there's a lot of ifs and buffs in this, if he does leave, New England would be interested in him, because obviously New England was where he was drafted. Belichick trained him up, thought it was great, was just annoyed that Brady didn't leave early enough. Maybe.
I think if you're New England and you're looking at the situation when you've just lost someone like Tom Brady, you've brought in Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton's very much like a stopgap thing. I think New England need to be looking to go full rebuild. I don't think they want to look to someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, who is not very good. I don't think he's obviously got the stats behind him and he has the career, but I think you want to look to either build round someone like Cam Newton or just wipe the slate clean and go from the start. Yeah. Unless you bring in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo and play someone under him. But yeah, I can't see it.
Yeah, well, just a thought. As I say, I have a feeling that San Francisco might move off of Garoppolo. As I say, the name that I suggested there was Darnold, and a lot of other people are suggesting Matt Ryan might go to San Francisco. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when Ryan was there. When Shanahan was there. The only thing that I think that the reason that might not happen is the salary that Matt Ryan's on, and I don't think San Francisco could actually afford that at the moment. But this NFC West is very strong, I have to say. I think a lot of good teams in this. I think San Francisco are the worst, to be honest. But just saying something because they're better than a lot of teams. In fact, all the teams in the NFC East. Sorry, that was a sly dig at Kai's Eagles there, but he's looking at me with disgust.
You're just building things into my Eagles discussion here, like.
But Seattle, I think, are unbelievable. I think they're the Super Bowl pick for the NFC. Does anyone agree with me or disagree?
No, 100%. I can't see anyone else getting there instead of them. I think Mikey was saying it yesterday, and I don't know if he mentioned it on Sunday night as well. When we're talking about DK Metcalf, I think through the past 2 seasons, last season and this season, he's obviously gone as a mid-round pick. I think Mikey, we were discussing that it could be second-round pick. In fantasy drafts, it could be a second-round pick, potentially late first round. I think Mikey also said he could potentially be the best receiver in the league for years to come, and I can't disagree with that. I think he's phenomenal. And like you say, with that first touchdown the other night, you shouldn't be able to score a touchdown from there. He's almost on the other side of the field, and he just runs sideways, runs around a couple of folk, and then just scampers in. Aye, very, very good asset for the Seahawks to have.
I think Mikey has been quoted as saying that the NFC runs through Seattle.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I said that in one of the first podcasts that we did, maybe week 2 or 3 or something like that, or 3 or 4. But I also said that the Chiefs were the AFC team, but slightly changed my mind now with the Steelers. But the Seahawks is just there's been nothing, not even Arizona Cardinals game. There's been nothing that has made me waver my opinion on that. Seahawks look very legit this year.
Yep, I totally agree. Moving on to 2 teams in the NFC, Mikey, who are both still above 500 somehow, I would say. The New Orleans Saints at the Chicago Bears. New Orleans Saints won it in overtime, 26-23. Mikey, what do you have to say about that one?
Not much, to be honest, considering it was like a quote-unquote overtime thriller. Usually 2 winning teams are exciting to watch, especially both from the same conference. It just wasn't really an exciting game. That's in my opinion anyway. I don't know about you two, but just not a crazy lot to talk about. But Drew Brees is 5-0 in his last 5 starts against the Bears, 10 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. I don't think he was fantastic. I thought he was clinical. I thought he did everything that he had to do. Then also as well, Alvin Kamara is averaging 150 scrimmage yards per game this season, which and that doesn't even include receptions, touchdowns, anything like that, which is just, I think he's the best weapon in the NFL. Probably saying that because McCaffrey's been out this season, and we've not really seen him, and he's not in the forefront of our minds, but I honestly think Alvin Kamara is fantastic. I was watching Good Morning Football again because I think I talk about that every week on this podcast. They were showing comparisons to Marshall Faulk, who's obviously a Hall of Famer, and through 52 games, which I think Alvin Kamara's played, Alvin Kamara's stats are a lot better. And bearing in mind that Marshall Faulk went to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl, has been an MVP in the league, it's the sky's the limit for Alvin Kamara for sure.
Yep, I totally agree. I think he's an unbelievable player. Are we all joining my narrative of the Bears are bad?
I was never against it.
I was going to say, is that the Packers fans again trying to knock down a team that have a better record than them?
I mean, it's not better.
Sorry, an equal record.
NFC North team, because it's the last NFC North team we're getting to from this week's schedule, so we can talk about them all freely now. I think that the upcoming Vikings-Bears games are going to be very close and very interesting, but right now on paper, I think the Vikings win them.
I agree with you.
I think they're going to turn the season around. Whether that leads to a playoff position, I don't think so. But you'd like to think that the NFC North still runs through Green Bay, but it's even the Lions as well. This division started off at the start of the season being it's Green Bay at the top, and then the rest are losing records. To now, who knows what's going to happen because all their records are relatively healthy at the moment.
Yep. One thing for the Bears, which I thought was fairly unfortunate, Mitchell Trubisky came onto the field for one snap, got injured on that snap. I don't think that's unfortunate. I don't even know why he was on the field.
I think it's fortunate for the Bears that that's happened. It's just another reason to keep him off.
Yeah, very possibly.
I'm not going to disagree with you in the way of the Bears being bad, because I don't think they're great, but I don't think they're quite as bad. They're maybe not exciting, right? I think I would probably say that they're not a very exciting team to watch, but I don't think I wouldn't quite class them in the bad category. I don't think you get a record like that.
Well, let's ask you then, if it was a Thursday night football game on tonight and you had all the time in the world and it was the Chicago Bears versus the Denver Broncos, would you be excited about that?
All the time in the world to watch it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I just think that
that's what I'm saying. They're not exciting teams, but they're still winning games.
They can get the job done. I do agree.
I think they're not built as an exciting team. They don't have, like, obviously they've got good players on both sides of the ball. You don't have a team with Khalil Mack without being exciting. But I just feel like they do what they need to do. They win games and that's it. And I think there could be. I'm not saying you're biased, but I think considering they're in the Packers division, there is always this wee undertone of I don't want this team to be good.
Just looking at the Bears' future schedule, they only have to play against the AFC South, 3 of the teams from it, and the NFC North for the rest of their games. So like they have 5 games in division still, and then they've got the Titans, the Texans, and the Jags. So just now the Bears have got 5 wins, but I fancy them to beat the Jags. But certainly against the Titans and the Texans, they could lose that, and then they could lose every game in the division the way the rest of the teams are playing. So just now they're 5-3. I could very easily see them going 6-10.
I'm just shocked that on the bye week of the Jaguars, you've actually brought them up in the podcast. I thought you would go a full week without mentioning them, Adam.
Nah, they're not very good. That's why I think the Bears will beat them, even though I don't think the Bears are very good. But yeah, you never know the way it's going at the moment. Though the Packers play the Bears on the last day, so that could be a game to see who wins the division. But I hope not at that point. But moving from 2 NFC teams to another 2 NFC teams, NFC East this time, what has been dubbed the worst division in football. Oh, Kai's got a wee sad face going on now. Even though his Philadelphia Eagles did win Sunday Night Football, 23 points to 9 against Dallas Cowboys and their 3rd string quarterback, who's now, by the way, been told he's not playing for next week and they're bringing someone off the practice squad. Maybe that tells you how well he played this game. But I say 23 points to 9, Philly won that. Kai, do you want to talk about it? Because I fell asleep halfway through it. So
I'll talk about the game in general, and then I'll talk about the Eagles. To be fair, we can obviously have a discussion about the game.
You pick one or the other.
I said we can have a discussion about the game, and then I'll talk about the Eagles.
Oh, I didn't watch it, so we can't have a discussion. Sorry.
Okay. I've dubbed it the Battle of the Bads between Wentz and DiNucci. I think that was 2 of the worst quarterback displays in a single game that I've seen since I started watching NFL. Between them, they only had 310 yards, 36 completions from 67 attempts.
Jesus.
Their average quarterback rating was 62.
Oh my God.
2 fumbles each. Carson Wentz with a couple of interceptions. 8 sacks between them. It was horrific. Genuinely horrific. I think Carson Wentz it was almost like Carson Wentz felt sorry for DiNucci being so bad that he went, right, I'll play badly as well. But really, on the surface, I think Carson Wentz actually is that bad right now. There's not really a whole lot to say about the actual game in itself. I know you fell asleep in the second half. I kept nearly falling asleep during the game. I was trying to do everything I could to keep myself awake, and I was just glad that the Eagles managed to win it. To talk about the Cowboys a wee bit, obviously I'll open this up to both of you as well, like we can talk about it. Zeke had less than 100 yards again. That's every game so far this season he's less than 100 yards. Now I know obviously again we're talking about, oh my god, someone's had less than 100 yards. It's not what you come to expect with someone like Elliott. Obviously it'll be a worry for the Cowboys. Is it a worry for fantasy owners as well? Because he's been uncharacteristically quiet.
Oh yeah, I mean you've taken a top 3-4 pick for Zeke, and he's currently acting as like an RB2. Like he's not doing what you expected. Just now, I'd rather someone like James Conner. I'd rather have someone like Miles Sanders when he comes back. I'd actually probably rather have Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well.
Yeah. I mean, Zeke's on 5 touchdowns this season so far, which through 7 games actually isn't too bad.
How many of them came at the start though?
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, 5 fumbles though.
Yeah.
At this time last year, he was only on 6 touchdowns, but he only had 1 fumble by this point last season, and he only had 2 games where he was less than 100 yards. He was lighting things up through this point last season. The
problem is you've got defenses that will just be stacking the box against him because at the moment with the quarterback play, they're like, well, we're not worried about this quarterback trying to pass the ball. We're just worried about Zeke. And they also seem to be giving the ball to Tony Pollard quite a lot. Not so much this week, they only give him 7 attempts, but last week especially the attempts, the carries were a lot more equal, so slightly worried.
Mikey, anything to note on the game before I start talking about the Eagles? I'll let you get it in before I bore you both.
No, it was more just I feel bad for Ben DiNucci. If you are a Cowboys fan, the biggest game of the season is the Eagles in Philadelphia. That is the game you want to win. You probably want to win that game more than at AT&T Stadium. So for him to come into it was just baptism of fire. It was a shame because he wasn't bad, but the speed of the NFL just completely came and bowled him over the top. That's just me obviously slating the Eagles again, because I think if it was any other quarterback, if Andy Dalton was playing that game, I think they might have won it. But the fact that they're moving on again from Ben DiNucci, he was just out of his depth in that game. And I was reading something funny the other day that Kellen Moore, who's the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, used to play for the Cowboys as quarterback. I mean, would you even be surprised if you seen him start a quarterback one game for the Cowboys this season? I honestly don't think I would be surprised. The fact that they're moving on to their fourth quarterback is just shocking. Don't know when Dalton's going to be back. Even when he comes back, I can't remember who was the game that they played 2 weeks ago, when he had that 3-hour drive to the Amari Cooper touchdown, and it was god awful. I don't think when Andy Dalton comes into this team, it makes any difference. I think they are just destined for complete failure this year, and it's mainly just down to just sheer luck. They've just been completely unlucky with injuries. But yeah, it's the Eagles to lose this year.
Right, let's quickly, before Kai goes on to the Eagles, because this is something I wanted to bring up, actually, talking about the Dallas Cowboys being as bad as they are. Okay, so just now the bottom of the NFL. Okay, so i.e. the first through fifth pick is the Jets with the first pick, then Giants, Jags, Texans, Cowboys. Okay, I think the Giants will get at least a couple of wins. I think they're better than what the record suggests. I think they'll be out of there.
Especially with Dalton coming back. They will win a couple, but not enough to win the
division. We said Giants.
Giants.
Not Cowboys.
Oh, the Giants, sorry.
I think, okay.
I agree with that as well.
Texans, I think, will get wins. They'll get out of there. The Jags and the Jets, I'm not so sure about. And the Cowboys, at this stage,
don't think.
Do they tank? And they could get something like a Justin Fields, because they're not going to bring back Dak. I don't think. They talked all off season. We're definitely going to pay him. We're definitely going to pay him, and they haven't. He's now injured. They've got an excuse not to pay him. Could they move on and get someone like a Justin Fields if they get the second or third pick?
Absolutely.
I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility. I think they probably might look to do that as well. Especially they're not playing well just now.
Especially in a season where they don't have fans in the stadium, or a huge amount of fans in the stadium if they're letting any in. Then
because Cowboys it's a hostile environment for the Cowboys players, let alone the away fans. So I've actually at the start of the podcast I was writing down. I think just roughly skimming through it, Eagles will win the division. My rough estimate is at 6-9-1. I think Washington will finish second in this division.
I think Washington might win it. I know I would say this to slag off Kai and the Eagles and stuff, but I think Washington are starting to improve. So I agree with you.
And Ron Rivera is the perfect coach for that. Yeah, I do agree, but I think the Eagles will still win the division. They have been missing key players. But then I've got the Cowboys and the Giants both on 3-13, and that is with the Giants winning the next game against the Cowboys. So they're obviously one head to head. They're one each. So I wouldn't be surprised if Washington finished second in the division. But again, it's the Eagles to lose. They have. I know I said that it's the 49ers and the Cowboys have been the worst hit injury teams, but Eagles aren't far behind. And when you've got people like Miles Sanders and stuff coming back, and it always seems that they've never got their full weapon of wide receivers, I would be absolutely shocked if the Eagles didn't win the division.
So we can move on to Eagles chat now. Kai, I promise you I'll even put the sound drop on for you to start for Eagles chat. I should really sing a song for that like I do Mikey's. I should do, Kai's Eagles chat.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I just said there wasn't a hell of a lot to say about the game in general. But there's not really a lot to say about the Eagles either, to be honest. I think they won that game by being the less bad of the two teams. I think it was nice to see Jalen Reagor back. Sorry, just to go behind the curtain so people can see this, Mikey's currently holding up a timer to me, and I'm purposely gonna make it as long as I can just to wind him up. It was nice to see Jalen Reagor, and obviously he got the touchdown. slightly questionable about whether it actually was a touchdown or not. I think he just and no more broke the plane, but it was nice to see him in and get a wee bit of action, considering we've been rather short at wide receiver. Boston Scott, very quiet. I think he kind of struggled a wee bit this week. Corey Clement didn't do much either between the two of them. I think we were pretty poor. Russian wise, I thought part of the reason why we struggled was because our offensive line is just obliterated every week without fail.
Yep.
Lane Johnson, a massive miss again coming into that game. I think he's probably, when we get him back fit, I think he'll be a massive asset on that offensive line. You might start to see Carson Wentz sacked less. He might not make as many mistakes, but it also might give him more time in the pocket to think of something stupid to do, or give him more time for someone to run about 500 yards down the field and for him to try and throw the worst pass ever.
I don't know what's wrong with Wentz, because he took you to a Super Bowl. I know he got injured halfway through the season, but he went 10-0 or whatever that season. Like, he was good, but this season his brain is just not in the right place. I don't know if that's because he doesn't have the proper defence from his offensive line or whatever to protect him, but my goodness, he's just been poor.
I mean, you saw the one he threw. I think the first Trayvon Diggs pick was the one. Like, there was people running under, there was people running decent routes. He could have probably tried a much easier pass with less implications, but he tried to throw the ball like 40 yards down the field into the end zone. It was pretty windy as well, to be fair, and he threw it so high that the wind flung it about something stupid. I mean, I know Mikey, I was talking to Mikey about this yesterday, and he said absolutely not. And I don't think it will happen, but I would quite like to see Jalen Hurts start after the bye week, or at least play a bigger role than he has so far. And I think there was obviously talk on Sunday night. Carson Wentz went to the sideline at one point, and he was having a talk with Doug Peterson, and in the background, Jalen Hurts is warming up his arm. I think it's a general thing for backup quarterbacks to do. They warm up their arm, just in case something happens. I think there was a real thought at that point from Doug Peterson about whether he pulled Carson Wentz from the game. I think quarterbacks have been pulled for less so far this season. I think by that point he had 2 interceptions, he had a fumble, he'd only thrown the 1 touchdown, but I don't think he was playing well at all. I would quite, after the bye week, we obviously play the Giants now. I know that's quite a big divisional game to throw him into, so maybe start Wentz. I would like to see Jalen Hurts play. Just give him a chance. He can't be any worse than Carson Wentz is.
Well, we could see he might be able to be.
And if he is, I stand corrected, and Carson Wentz can go back in, but I don't think there would be any harm in giving him a chance. I know, obviously, we play the Giants and the Browns coming out of the bye week, and then after that we've got the Seahawks, the Packers and the Saints, so please don't put Jalen Hurts in for those 3 games, because that would absolutely kill him.
Out of interest, Mikey, just looking at that schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles, who do you have them beaten when they've got that schedule?
Let me just take a look at the schedule again. I ran through all 4 of the people in this division's schedule. Let me just double check.
While you do that, just looking at the rushing game, I think they'll very much, Philadelphia, be looking forward to getting Miles Sanders back.
To have Miles Sanders back. Obviously, the other note, I totally forgot about Dallas Goedert back. I think he only had 1 reception.
Yeah, only targeted once.
I don't think he was on the field all the time either. I think he was very much limited in when he was on the field. But again, nice to have him back as well.
Yeah, I've got them picking up 3 wins from here on out, which is maybe a bit silly now that I'm looking at it. But the ones I've got them are the 3 divisional games: New York, Dallas, Washington.
I think they'll beat the Browns.
No, not in Cleveland.
I think we come out of the bye week and we win the first 2. I think we beat the Giants and the Cowboys. No, the Giants and the Browns. Sorry. And then we play the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Saints. I think if we get anything out of any of them, it will be a miracle. But then I think we win all the rest of the divisional games from there.
Adam's outlandish claim of the week is that Washington will win this division. There we go. There's Adam's outlandish claim.
I've got them beating New York and then losing to Cleveland, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, and then beating Dallas and Washington. But then when you say that, if you're coming off a 5-game skid and going to going to Dallas and having 2 divisional games to finish, depending on how they've done, if Andy Dalton comes back or if Washington continuing to improve, who knows? But that's hearsay for the time being. You obviously need to. There's a lot of football to be played between now and then.
Yeah. Well, Kai, your Eagles chat is over. That was more than enough.
I think I made it to 4 minutes there just to keep Mikey
4
going.
minutes.
Are the Eagles in a bye next week?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So we have to talk about them. Anyway, the Monday Night Football was the Monday Night Football was Tampa Bay at the New York Giants. 25 points to 23. Not often a scoreline you see 25 points. It's a strange one. But the Giants did give Tampa Bay a game. I said there. It's now 6 games so far this season. The Giants have lost by 10 points or fewer. There was a talk of possibly defensive pass interference on the last pass of the game in the 2-point attempt. Realistically, it's never going to get given for DPI there. But the Giants did give them a game. I think Mikey was talking about how he's off podcast, how Daniel Jones had been doing a bit. Obviously, Daniel Jones has never had his full set of weapons. So for him to be playing as well as this, I know he threw a couple of interceptions, but for him to be able to bring the Giants into this game, I think was good for him, especially against such a tough Tampa Bay defense. But looking at the Tampa Bay side of the ball first, I just wanted to talk about the Rojo fumble. Ronald Jones started the game looking like he was the one getting all the touches. Then he fumbled. Then Bruce Arians and Tom Brady sent him to the naughty step and brought out Leonard Fournette, which may or may not have affected Mikey's fantasy matchup this week with Fournette getting all the touches. Mikey, do you want to touch on it?
No comment. I spoke to Kai before this game. I thought it was going to be a close game. I picked the Bucks in our predictions, but I wouldn't have been surprised if the Giants had won this game. I think they're slowly piecing together, not results, but performances, to say the least. They're losing by a couple of points here and there. They're losing games on fourth and goals to win the game, kind of 2-point plays to take it to overtime. So if Saquon was in that team, that it would be a totally different situation for them just now. If Saquon was in that team, considering the Eagles and the Cowboys this season, they could have easily been top of this division if they still had Saquon healthy. Or all their weapons on offense healthy, but they haven't. Simple as that. So they've been struggling. I like Daniel Jones. I think he tries to do the right thing, but the Giants are a very demanding franchise, and I don't think he's got what it takes to have a long career there.
Alf Morris coming back to do some running, I thought was possibly the last we'd seen of him after he played a wee bit for the Cowboys, but here he was coming out to play. No carries for Dion Lewis, but Morris had 8 carries for 28 yards, which is slightly surprising, but definitely that running game. We'll look forward to next season when Barkley comes back. Tampa Bay side of the ball, Mike Evans, 5 receptions, 55 yards and a touchdown, trying to show that you can still do stuff before AB comes back and Chris Godwin comes back. Oh, AB comes in, and Chris Godwin comes back from injury. That offense is a cheat code, isn't it? I mean, if your receivers are Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin.
See if you're a defense going up against them, who on earth do you put your best corner on?
Yeah, if you're the Rams, who does Sean McVay put Jalen Ramsey on? Genuinely,
does he just rotate around the 3 of them?
You're gonna need Dr. Octopus in there in the second.
And by the way, you've also got Gronk.
Aye,
just to throw that in there.
See, the thing is as well, you've also got OJ Howard, who is a very good tight end, and Cameron Brake, who's a very good tight end. This is just Bruce Arians playing Madden, building a roster of just absolute weapons.
Yeah,
aye.
I mean, Scotty Miller's been playing really well as well.
They could be. Aye, I think they could be quite dangerous.
Yeah,
if they can pick up close wins like they did here, while they figure out how to integrate all that into their offensive system, 100% they could be a Super Bowl contender. But that's a big if.
They need to get the first place in the NFC. See if Seattle get to play at home. I think Tampa Bay warm weather team might struggle going to Seattle in January. But if they're able to be at home during the playoffs, I think Tampa Bay could do it. That is my...
Here's a question, because now since this was the last game, that I've got the current playoff picture as it stands if the season was to end today.
Yep, I like this.
So I'll run through the games. We'll just literally blast through them and we'll try and figure out who wins. So Seahawks and the Steelers get the number 1 seeds. So you've got the Rams at Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Who wins?
Tampa Bay.
Right. You have the Cardinals at Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Packers.
And then you have the Saints at Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Oh, I don't think the Saints are very good. I think the Eagles have got enough.
I'm gonna go with that as well. I don't think the Saints have a...
I think the Eagles have got enough to win a playoff game at home.
Okay, so you've got all the top seeds going through. So now we have the Philadelphia Eagles in Seattle.
No chance for the Eagles there. That's one step too far.
I think, yeah.
Definitely Seattle.
And then you have Green Bay in Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay will...
I think I would agree, yeah.
They'll just demolish us.
And then Tampa Bay in Seattle. Who have you got?
Just as I said there, I think in Seattle, Seattle will win it. If it was the other way around, I fancy Tampa Bay at home. But...
Yeah.
So now you've got Pittsburgh Steelers with the number 1 seed. Browns at the Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Then you've got Colts at the Bills.
Bills.
I would pick Colts. So you're going to have to be the decider there, because I think the Bills are starting to fall apart.
And this is what I'm saying, like the experienced quarterback against Josh Allen, who's not got a good playoff record, I would take the Colts maybe in that one. So just if we're doing a democracy, then we'll just say the Colts. And then the Ravens at the Titans.
Sorry, I was just going to say I need to stick with my initial prediction of the Bills potentially getting to the Super Bowl.
What was that last one, sorry?
The Ravens in Tennessee.
Titans.
I think Titans. I think Lamar's going to struggle, yeah.
So that would end up being Titans in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
So hard.
Pittsburgh, I'd go for.
Okay. And then you've got the Colts at Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah. So, and then Pittsburgh versus Kansas City.
Is that who's home? Yeah, Steelers?
It would be the Steelers with the number 1 seed.
Steelers. I think the Steelers win that.
Yeah, I also think so too. Again, experienced quarterback.
I would probably went the Chiefs, but we're in a democracy, so the Steelers go through.
Okay, so Steelers versus Pittsburgh in Tampa Bay.
Steelers versus Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's just it's the practice squad versus the number 1
just
seed.
a select team.
Seattle Seahawks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Who wins that?
Big Ben.
Seahawks.
Big Ben falls apart and the Seahawks win it.
MVP winner Russell Wilson leads the Seahawks to a second title under Russ, is what I say. So we're all saying it'll be a Seattle Pittsburgh Super Bowl.
I think it might be Seattle Kansas City, but the two of you think.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just as it stands just now. That is how the playoff works with the Browns and the Colts making the playoffs.
Can I just say, if Kansas City got to the Super Bowl, I think Kansas City would beat Seattle.
That's weird because I agree with that as well.
Yeah, if Kansas City get there, I think they win. But if Pittsburgh get there, then I think Seattle win.
Yeah.
I was just while you were doing that, I was looking at the Bucks' schedule to come. Just obviously they're 6-2 at the moment. They play the Saints, the Panthers, the Rams, and the Chiefs before they go into their bye. I can see them going into their bye at 9-3. I think they would beat the Panthers and the Saints. I think they beat the Rams. I think the Chiefs beat them. The Buccaneers.
Right.
6-2. Their bye's in week 13. I think they go into their bye 9-3. And then coming out of it, they've got the Vikings, the Falcons, the Lions, the Falcons.
Do you is the game against the Chiefs in Kansas City or in Tampa?
It is in... I think it's in Tampa.
If it's in Tampa, I fancy them to win it.
Yeah, it's in Tampa.
This Bucks Saints game this weekend is huge, especially with Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Drew Brees all being questionable as well. This could be the big one in that division. Huge, considering Saints won the first game in week 1.
I think Tampa will win it. I think Tampa will be back with a vengeance and will absolutely demolish them. I'm talking like 2-touchdown victory. I think this is Drew Brees' last season. I think his arm's gone. I think he's struggling. I think he'll retire at the end of the season. Adam's outlandish claim of the week. We haven't had a Mikey's outlandish claim of the week yet, Mikey.
Yeah, I've not got one. I've been thinking about it. I was going to say that I think Washington will finish second in the division was my outlandish claim, but you came out there like
Adam's outlandished it.
You've outlandished me, so I'm going to stay quiet for the time being. I don't, as I said before, I'm not going to do them just for the sake of them. I currently on my list have seven outlandish claims, and I've had 2 correct and 1 wrong so far, and the other 4 have yet to be announced. So,
well, we'll find out, I'm sure. We'll move on with our 2-minute warning because we are now going to the predictions, which Mikey kindly looks after for us because I don't. I just chucked at him. Again, look behind the curtain. I just went, look, I'm not doing this. Does someone else want to look after it? And
well,
Mikey,
all I'll say is we all had some wrong clean sweeps this week.
yes.
This is the most we've had. We've had 5 wrong clean sweeps this week, which maybe shows that there's been a few upsets this week.
Yeah. I'm historically really good at this, so I'm fully expecting us to win here. So we started off Thursday Night Football. Atlanta beat Carolina.
We had the wrong sweep. We all said the Panthers.
Oh dear. Then Pittsburgh beat Baltimore.
Kai, correct with that one.
I thought Pittsburgh's bubble might have bust, but it would appear
So
not.
especially in Baltimore as well.
I think we all surely got this one wrong for the Miami Dolphins beating the Rams.
Wrong sweep with the Rams.
Surely we all got the Chiefs beating the Jets.
Correct, clean sweep for all 3 of us.
Green Bay losing to Minnesota.
Wrong sweep. We all said the Packers.
The Colts beating the Lions.
Adam, you were the only one right on that.
Oh, supporting the Colts.
Mikey, have you got one right yet? Oh, you got the Chiefs.
Chiefs. Cheeky. I can't swear on this show. So moving on.
We're adult and child friendly. The Raiders at the Browns. The Raiders won.
Clean sweep for all of us. We got the Raiders.
Good. See, I thought you might, between you Sonnies, might have went for the Browns there because you like the Browns more than I do. But between between the two of you, I don't rank them at all.
I said that I thought that the Raiders would make the playoffs at the expense of the Browns. So this game, I couldn't really say the Browns.
That's true. The Bengals beating the Titans.
We had the wrong sweep there. We all said Titans.
The Bills beating the Patriots.
Me and Kai had the Bills.
Did I have the Bills? All right.
You had the Patriots. Which, again, I was going to choose because of the whole record over them and potentially should have been you being the only one right there.
I wasn't quite as angry with Cam then as I should have been because he basically... All right. Denver beating the Chargers.
We all had the wrong sweep.
See, if the Chargers had stopped throwing away games, we might have done all right there. The Seahawks beating the 49ers.
Correct sweep.
Correct sweep. Good. The Saints beating the Bears.
Correct sweep again.
Yeah. The Eagles beating the Cowboys.
Correct sweep again.
And Tampa Bay beating the Giants.
Correct sweep again.
That wasn't very exciting. There's only a couple that were different, weren't they?
All I'll say though, Adam, if the Patriots had scored on that touchdown drive, you would have won this week.
Dun, dun, dun.
So,
but alas, they did not. What were the scores for this week? And then
I'll tell you what, you weren't last place this week, Adam.
Goodness me.
You were joint second. Technically still last because there's nobody in third place. But well, for the sake of your pride, we'll say that you finished second. I've actually got it. So myself and Adam both had 7 out of 14, but I've put myself in last place out of the kindness of my heart. So you finished in second place, even though we got the same score.
That's very kind of you, Mikey. I'll be forever in your... And
then Kai was 1 ahead. He got 8 out of 14.
Well,
so
it's a fairly poor week from all of us.
It was pretty poor from all of us. I think those wrong clean sweeps, Chargers, Titans, things like that, did go quite poorly. So, Adam, you're on 45 out of 87. So you're still above 500.
And nearly as bad as the Eagles. Goodness me.
Whereas
not quite that bad.
I have 54 out of 87, and Kai's 2 ahead on 56 out of 87.
Well, at least it's close between the two of you. Yeah.
It's competitive between me and Kai, but Adam, maybe we should stop you playing.
Aye, exactly. Maybe it'd be better if the two of you stopped, and then I could catch up.
Do we maybe have something for Adam that could gain him some points in this prediction?
Yes. So me and Kai have spoke about this. We're willing to give you 5 points onto the totals. So if you get this right, it would take you up to 50 out of 87.
I'm not a huge fan of all this collusion that's went on behind the scenes between the two of you.
But it's a win-win, because if you don't get it right, you don't lose points.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
it's just a chance for you to get back in the mix. So there are
What is this?
There are 9 notable starting quarterbacks aged 24 or younger. Can you name all 9 of them? And you have 3 strikes and you're out. So if you get 3 wrong answers, you lose. But if you get all 9, so you basically get 12 guesses.
What do you mean by notable?
So I don't even know if it's the right age, but like Kyle Allen isn't a notable starting quarterback. So just run through them and we'll see how we do.
So I'm going to start off one which I'm querying if it's classed as notable or not. So I'm going to go with Tua.
Tua is correct.
Yes.
22 years old.
So 3 strikes and I'm out. This is not good content when I'm sitting there thinking, is it? I was trying to work my way through the divisions, and then I'm not guessing this at the moment, but I'm thinking, is Josh Allen close? Do I want to give that up in case it's one that's not right? Through that division, we've got the Chiefs on the other side. Is he under 24? I don't think so. Drew Lock.
Drew Lock is one of them.
Yeah. Herbert.
Herbert is one of them.
Yeah. Who else on that side of the country? Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray is one of them.
Yeah. I don't think Goff is. I don't think Garoppolo is. And Russell certainly isn't. Let's go south. This is quite tricky. I'm trying to talk my way through it so that the audio listeners can have something that's not just empty noise. In the south, he's certainly not with Brady and Breeze. They're probably double that age. No one else in the south there. The AFC South is the one I hate, under 24. I might come back to him. Tennessee don't have it. Indianapolis don't have it. Oh, this is tricky. This is harder than you might think. Is Lamar under 24? He is, yes.
5 of 5 so far.
5 of 5 so far, right. Burrow.
6
yeah.
of 6.
6 of 6. Oh, right. Daniel.
6 and then throws.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is one of them.
Yeah. But you see that Kyle Allen and Dwayne Haskins doesn't count, right?
Yeah. You've got 7 out of 7 so far, so you've got some wiggle room now.
I've got some wiggle room now. Is Josh Allen under 24?
Josh Allen is. Yeah. He is 24.
He is 24 or under. Baker?
Baker is wrong. Strike 1. You only have 1 quarterback still to get.
1 more still to get.
And you've got 2.
Yeah,
you've got 2 guesses.
I'm just trying to work my way through the divisions to see who. See, because Mitch isn't the starting quarterback there. I don't think he's under 24 anyway.
He'll be 25, I'm guessing.
Who else could it be? Is Deshaun Watson 24?
He is not. That is strike 2. That's interesting.
Right.
It went so well.
This is where it then does get tricky. So I went through.
Your next guess has to be right, basically.
That's all wait a minute. Is Sam Darnold 24 under?
Sam Darnold is correct.
Oh, goodness me.
Well done.
I thought, text Mikey and ask who the one you hadn't got yet was, because I couldn't remember.
I thought I'd worked my way through the AFC East, but I hadn't. I'd missed out the Jets, because most folk miss out the Jets.
Very well done. With that, you now move up to 50 out of 87. Still in last place, but you're now only 6 off top.
That's good. See, if I end up winning this, you're going to hate giving me those points.
Those points will be deducted.
Well, I appreciate you offering me points anyway, gentlemen. It's very kind of you.
Charity case.
While we're still on the prediction-y bit of the segment, we have Thursday night football tonight. At the moment, now we're recording this, it's just gone midday here in Britain, which means it's 7 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. Which means the game is still due to be played tonight. It's not being cancelled because of COVID, because all of the 49ers have got COVID. Half of the running back room in Green Bay's got COVID. But
COVID Bowl,
exactly. Who do you predict for tonight's game? I am predicting the Green Bay Packers.
I think this will be a statement win for the Packers. This is more than just a normal game. Obviously, we lost the NFC Championship to them. They battered us last season in the regular season in San Francisco, so I think Aaron Rodgers will be right up for this one.
I disagree with either of you. I think the Packers will probably win this.
I would
think they would win it quite comfortably.
I do think that the 49ers will still demolishers in the run game. They don't have anyone to catch the ball, to be fair. But with Haystate, I think he's still going to get a couple of touchdowns, hopefully, because he's on my fantasy team this week. But I think because we can't stop the run, I think we're still gonna get run on by the 49ers. But I think the Packers will just be too good, especially with all the injuries to the 49ers. Sorry, injuries / COVID to the 49ers. I think that's us then, is it?
I think we've exhausted everything, yeah.
Yes. In which case, all it leaves me to do is to say thank you to you, Kai, and thank you to you, Mikey.
Pleasure as always.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye. That was our Week 8 review of the 2020 NFL season. And we'll see you next time.